Welcome to Smash Avro Property. Today I'm speaking with Sam Gordon. He's a 29-year-old who's been investing in property for 10 years. He first started at 19 and since then he's recently achieved his goal of owning 20 properties in his 20s. Sam now helps others achieve their property goals through his buyer's agency, Australian Property Scout, where he shares a little bit about the deals that he puts together without giving away too many of his trade secrets. I really got on with Sam. I love his positivity and his outlook on life, and I'm sure you will too. As always, seek your own professional financial, legal and property investing advice for your current situation. Everything that we talk about is just our opinion and general in nature and should never be considered as personal advice. So without any further ado, let's get house hunting with Sam. Sam Gordon, welcome to Smash Over Property.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate being here.
I've seen you pop up every now and then. I've seen your mug come up on LinkedIn and your name pop up in a couple of podcasts and heard a couple of things that you've been talking about. So I'm very intrigued to find out who this Sam bloke is. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently up to?
Yeah, no worries, mate. I run my own buyers agency, sourcing investment properties specifically for people. That company's name is Australian Property Scout, and we're pretty much we're Sydney based, but we go out and source property right around Australia. I'm 29. Literally on the weekend just gone was 10 years to the day since I bought my first investment property back at 19, and I just bought my 20th deal. So that's going through at the moment. So 20th property in the portfolio.
Yeah, far out. So walk us through your first one. I mean, what kind of inspired you to get into property investing at the start? And then what area did you buy in?
Yeah, so look, I guess in terms of being inspired, I was at that age where a lot of people were going out and buying nice cars, and I went out and that was what I was doing, mate. I was kind of looking for my first car. I was probably only like 17, 18 at the time. I saved myself about 15 to 20 grand, and I was looking for the Toyota Supra, the old, little Jap import back then. And my old boy, being a mechanic by trade, was kind of picking them all apart, so I wouldn't buy one until I'd
Yeah,
kind of
right.
saved up enough that I had close enough money for a deposit on the house. And so I got bitten by the bug of getting excited by buying real estate, and got out there and started looking for things. And it was kind of when the block was big as well. So I was looking for something that I could renovate.
Right.
And so I came across I ended up kind of refining my search down to a 2-bedroom unit in Wollongong, about an hour and a half south of Sydney, on the coast there. Big kind of university, steel city as well. And ended up getting in there. Bought my first unit there at 275,000.
Wow. Nice. And is that where you grew up? Like, did you buy sort of where you lived or?
It wasn't too far from where I lived. So I grew up in the Southern Highlands on a farm, actually. So it was only probably about 45 minutes from where I lived, but it just kind of made sense to me in terms of, like I literally bought directly behind the CBD that's there. It was in,
Okay.
super
Yeah.
walkable location, university city. So, I never had problems renting it out after I lived in it as well.
Yeah, I've actually been up there and that's a nice spot.
It is a good spot, yeah.
So talk to me about the home lifestyle when you were younger. Was your parents property investors? Would they talk about property, or was it kind of your own sort of initiation?
No, they didn't really talk about it too much. I remember a story from when I was younger. It kind of always resonated with me. I remember they bought their first house. It was like sometime in the 70s, I think it was, and the thing doubled in value in a 3-year window. And they'd sold that and then went down and bought the farm where they still are. And I think it was at that point, or them telling me that story, maybe that always stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
That property can move so quickly, and can grow so quickly. So I guess it was always just in my mind that, from that. But yeah, mate, to tell you the truth, no, they've got their own home, the farm, and they've got an investment property. A holiday home down the south coast.
Nice.
But they never had any investments or anything really
Yeah.
until I started up the buyers agency and started buying them a bit of stuff.
Oh, at least you've led them down the right path.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
So apart from not buying your dream car and saving a deposit, was that was it the hardest part of getting started?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was making nothing back then. I think I remember actually, I was clearing $584 a week at the time when I bought it, so I was
Jeez.
making nothing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was the hardest part was saving that deposit up
Yeah.
and trying to service. But it wasn't too bad in terms of servicing back then. I mean, rates were up around 6.5, 7%. But I didn't
Yeah.
have any other
Right.
debt. I've never had a credit card,
Yeah.
never had a personal loan, car loan, or anything like that. So that obviously worked in my favor as well.
And what were you doing for work back then?
I was actually working on the farm. So
Oh, right. Nice.
I went to a sports high in Sydney,
Yeah.
and I had to travel 2.5 hours in and 2.5 hours
Oh,
back every day. So when I
that's
kind of started
brutal.
year 11 in those HSC years, yeah, man, it wasn't for me. Hey, and I knew I wasn't going to be an academic, man. I didn't want to go to uni. I
Yeah.
was happy to, get to work, either, pick up a trade or something like that. But yeah, I ended up just working on the farm, and I stayed, to tell you the truth, mate, I stayed there the whole time till I started a buyer's agency.
Yeah, nice. And by my calculations, it sounds like you would have graduated in 2008.
I think I was supposed to graduate in '07.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, because I'm born in Jan, so it was I was kind of
Ah,
one of the
there you
younger
go.
ones coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
left at the start of '06.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I can relate to the traffic back in Sydney back then. So 2.5 hours wouldn't have been that cruisy either. You would have been bumper to
No,
bumper at
man.
some point.
Oh, to tell you the truth, man, it was trains. I catch two
Ah,
trains and a bus.
right.
Yeah, so I used to catch what was it, a 5:15 train every morning to get to school on time.
Far out. That's ridiculous. Oh
Yeah,
well,
pretty
that's
nuts looking back
dedication.
at it now. Yeah, that's it.
So, how big was that initial deposit that you saved for?
I think it was about 30. I can't remember exactly to the dollar, but I think it was around about 30 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I think it was I think it was, yeah, $10,000 first time owners grant as well,
Oh,
which
great.
honestly, it's a massive leg up. When you're going in for that first property, if you can get, or at the very least, you kind of get your stamp duty savings these days as well. Take advantage of it where you can, because it definitely helps you along.
Yeah, for sure. And from that initial property, did you sort of have any investing goals in mind? And has that changed now? Like now that you've got 20, do you know what your sort of end goal is, or what was the initial plan there?
I don't really have, I guess, end goals. I set goals as I'm kind of going along. When I bought the first one, I honestly, made it like I was 19. I just thought, oh, I'm just going to go out there and buy something. You hear stories about people like Harry Triggerboff and stuff, with, whatever he's got now, like 6,000 units or something.
Yeah.
And, dudes like that inspire you. But no, I never really had goals until I did my first development, which was at 22.
Okay.
And I made really good money out of it. And I was positive cash flow, and I was like, you know what, like I set the goal, because at the time I think I was on about 50 grand a year, and so my
Hmm.
goal was I want to replace my income. I want to get 50 grand passive,
Yeah.
and I hit that, I think at 27 or 28,
Far
and then
out.
I set the next goal to 250 a year, so
Yeah.
as
Wow.
a passive income figure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
That's
awesome.
my current
So,
goal.
so
When
walk
I
us
hit
through
that, I'll
the.
probably reset.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's a good goal to have.
Yeah, bloody oath.
So walk us through the process of the first one to sort of the not all the way to 20, but is it sort of like a compounding effect now? Like you buy more regularly now, or did it
Yeah.
take a while from that first one?
Yeah, look, it always takes a little bit from your first one, and the most important thing is buying well. You have to make your money on the way into that first deal, which is what I guess like what I help a lot of people with, because you have to make your money on the way in the first one, because then you can pull that out and put it into the next one.
Yeah.
And if I'd learnt that when I was younger, and known it at that point, because I bought in below market, I didn't really realize. I've always been a bit of a bargain hunter, just wanted to buy things cheaper than they're worth.
Cheap. Yeah.
And then yeah, when I if I'd understood it back then, I literally could have pulled my money out 6 months later and bought again. But I didn't. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important to know that, and then pull that money back out and kind of keep going. And that was the thing. So I bought my first one. Yeah, that was at 19. I did my second one, which was a small development. I did that at 22, and then I had a little bit of time off. I was living in that. The one I did, it was a small development there. I lived in that with my missus at the time,
Yeah.
and then that kind of slowed me down. She'll never know. But anyway, and then
Story for another podcast, huh?
yeah, yeah, and then I think it was in '05 I bought another two. 2015. I
Yeah.
bought another two. 2016, I bought another three, and then just kind of, yeah. I think it's a thing when you start buying in below market and they've got those strong cash flows, you can really start ramping it up. And when you know what you're doing, or you're leveraging someone else that knows what they're doing, that's when you can see some really, as you say, the compounding effect. Those gains just keep on going, and I've been accumulating pretty aggressively the past kind of 2 years as well.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. So, talk to me. I mean, obviously, it sounds like you do a few different types of strategies. It sounds like the original one was a bit of a sit and hold, and then
Hmm.
second one was a bit of a development. And we were just talking before the podcast, and you said you flew in from Brisbane this morning. So, thanks again
Yeah.
for coming on today. But
No worries,
it
mate.
sounds like now you're sort of diversified quite drastically with different strategies and different areas.
Yep.
Have you predominantly bought in the same area, or have you sort of completely diversified now as well?
Yeah, mate, I've completely diversified. It depends what you're chasing. So the way I always start, and always try and start with clients' portfolios as well, is you need to build the foundations, right? That's what we kind of call it, a foundation portfolio. You start with that, and they're typically, you go and you buy your below market in metro locations with strong cash flows. That's what I was in Brizzy doing. I'm sourcing for clients all the time, and that's how you build your base, right? Because you need to. It's very hard to go straight into something like a development
Mm,
because it's such an intensive cash requirement that you need. So instead, you start with your initial deposit. You go and put it into the first of these foundation properties, and you buy in below market, and then you get a reval. 3 to 6 months later, you can revalidate it at what it's actually worth and pull out that equity you've made on the way in by buying well. And maybe quite often we'll force a bit of value through a renovation or something as well. And then you pretty much can pull that capital out and roll it into the next deal, and then just do
yeah,
exactly the same into the next deal and roll it like that, until you've built yourself a good little foundation portfolio there. And then once that foundation portfolio goes through some growth, that's when you can pull it out and start putting it into things like the really high cash flow deals, or the really the big chunk profit deals where you can spin off 150 grand in a 12-month window, cash out of the deal, chuck it into another, either another foundation property, or into another development, or the high cash flow deal. And that's why when I started doing it like that, that's when my portfolio exploded, because
yeah,
you have to build those foundations first, right? Because first and foremost, you can't save your way to something like a development site. So you have to build the
yeah,
foundation, get that
yeah.
growth, roll that into the more accelerated stuff. And yeah, mate, it's super evolved, and everyone gets something. Everyone's kind of sourcing something, or typically something different. People have different budgets, different capacities. But honestly, mate, anyone can get into it. Anyone can get started. Literally, you can buy, like, if you know what you're doing, you can buy 20, 25 Ks from a Brizzy CBD for under 200
Mm,
grand for a house. Positive cash
wow.
flow, like,
Yeah, right.
30, 40 grand below market. We're doing that thing week in, week out for people.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, it sounds like you got that
Yeah.
formula down packed of just, buy positive cash flow, manufacture some equity, pull it back out and reuse it and go again.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I mean, obviously that's a strategy that you've used to get to 20, but has there been, one particular deal that's been your most successful?
I've got two. So there's two different deals that I do. So I've done multiple of both, right? The first one is sourcing that development land that you can put dual occupancies on,
Mm,
because they're typically not much more expensive than a normal, than a residential block of land. And I always go out and source these things below market. I'm always trying to make my money where I can. And when you've done it like that, and then you build at a wholesale level and you build a dual oc. And honestly, people can get this so wrong. If you pay too much for land and then pay too much for the build, it's you may as well just go on paid retail. But if you
yeah,
do this right, like there's two deals I've done that made in excess of $250,000 on each deal, and they're both about,
jeez.
one's 12,000, one's $14,000 a year positive cash flow. Um, I love deals like that, but you need
Yeah,
you need capital to go into those deals, right? They both take about 150K to get into, so that's why
yeah,
they're a little bit more accelerated, a little bit further down.
yeah,
But then look, they're one set of they're kind of manufactured equity and high cash flow. They're kind of a bit of a hybrid. But then on the other scale, I go out and source unit blocks as well. I love the unit blocks. You buy them in one line, you chop them up, you renovate them. It's the same sort of thing. You can make about 150 grand, and the positive cash flow on those things are massive as well. But again, the capital to get in them is quite high.
it's quite
So
high. Yeah,
yeah, that's why it's a further down the line. I have people come to me and they want to do it on their first deal, and I'm like, you've got to understand, this took me 7 or 8 years of solid investing before I got to that level.
yeah,
If I'd had someone if I knew someone like me that had done it for them, you could have done it quicker. But it still
yeah,
is a few years down the track. You can't jump into that deal. It's too big,
yeah.
essentially to kind of go into first up.
Yeah.
But
And
that's the
by,
good stuff you get to look at down the track.
yeah, for sure. And by capital, do you mean like just having a bigger deposit? Like, are the banks giving the same sort of loans at an 80% LVR on these ones, or is that harder to get?
No, yeah. It's if you got the capital, yeah, the starting, yeah, so the cash, or equity from other properties,
Yep.
yeah, they're more than willing to lend to you because as a back end, they can val them up and see they're going to come in higher and see what the cash flow figure is on it. So they're very happy to lend to you on it, but they want
Yeah.
to see that 20% deposit. The unit blocks are
Yeah.
higher. The unit blocks it depends the size of the unit block, but they're typically 20 to 30% deposits.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but the way I typically work them is if you do the deal well enough, if you bought well enough, and all the rest of it, you can typically once you've individually titled them, renovated them, got them revalued at a higher level individually, you can typically pull all your money back out of that deal anyway,
Right. Okay.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's obviously how
Yeah,
you've tenfolded your portfolio in
yeah,
10
definitely.
years.
Yeah.
So without giving away all of your secrets, I mean, how do you find the potential in these investment properties? Like, what sort of things do you look out for?
It's in terms of those deals, it's all about having the right connections. But
Yeah.
all those deals I bought, they never hit the market. We
Yeah.
bought them
Right.
before they went
Okay.
to market, and that's
Yeah.
honestly what it is, man. Like real estate is a relationships game.
Yeah.
You know the right people, and they like you, and you get the best deals.
Yeah.
So typically, I go into the areas where I know I can make money,
Mhm.
or I go into the areas where I know growth's coming, and I just build those relationships, man. I just go out there and meet people, get in front of them, and find the people that I resonate with, and then they're
Yeah.
the guys I like to do business with, and they like to do business with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that's the way it's worked.
Is
It's worked
it
quite
is
well.
it predominantly like just real estate agents or developers, or what type of people are you looking out for?
Everyone.
Everyone that wants to do a
Everyone in the real
deal.
estate game. Yeah, look,
Yeah.
I can't give out too many more secrets, but it's you'd be surprised the people that deals come through. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, right, okay.
There's different avenues you wouldn't expect that sometimes the best deals can come
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
through.
that's awesome. All right, well, if you want to figure out how to get a hold of these deals, you're gonna have to contact Sam for these ones. So talk to us a little bit about managing your risks. I mean, you talked about you didn't really have, a sort of end plan, but do you have an exit strategy? Like, do you just want to keep building this portfolio now, or have you got a plan to get to a certain number and then sell off half of them, or what are you sort of thinking?
Um, Look, I've always got a debt reduction plan in mind. I've always got, there's properties in the portfolio now that are sitting in Brizzy and Adelaide that when they go through their, once those properties mature and go through their growth cycle, I will sell down. But it's probably, mate, like you and I, mate, are pretty young fellas, right? Like
Mm,
over the longer you hold them, the more the compounding effect takes hold.
yeah,
But there is always a time to sell certain properties. A lot of people say never sell. I don't agree with that. I think at certain times it makes sense to sell certain properties.
yeah,
Like Wollongong, right? So my very first purchase, I never wanted to sell that. That thing was like my golden child. I never wanted to sell it. I made massive capital gains on it.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, it was negative
right.
and negative
As
cash flow, and I
in
couldn't.
negatively geared, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
it was the only property I had in my portfolio that was.
yeah,
And it was holding me back from a lending point when I was about 26, I think I was.
yeah, right,
And this deal popped up through an agent off market, and it was unreal. So that was the very first dual lock deal I ever did.
right,
And I could see the potential to make 200 to 250K on this deal. And put this in mind, this was at the peak of the Sydney market. Or yeah, so it was. I knew I didn't actually want to buy in Sydney at this point. I was not buying at this
wow,
point. And this deal came out. I knew how good this deal was. So what I did was it was kind of fortuitous because it made me sell Wollongong,
yeah.
because I took it to my broker and said, look, this is what I've got access to. Can you get me someone to lend to me on this? And she's like, no, you are maxed to the hill. And I said, well, what can we do? And she's like, there's only one thing you can do. It's like
Yeah.
sell your worst performer. I'm like, that's not my worst performer. And she's like, well, and I said, because I'd had about 250 grand growth in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and she's like, but the thing is, the cash flow on it's terrible compared to its current value. And so
Yeah.
that's why I think it's really good to strategize with the different people and the right people. And it made sense. So I sold it down. I cleared that. I got an extended settlement on the block of land. And I sold that thing. I sold that unit down, rolled all the profits into this deal,
Mm,
and that's when it made me realize that there will come a time when certain properties need to be sold, and
yeah.
they're typically properties that don't have, you can't force any more value on it, or it may get to a point where you just need to sell one thing off to do a big deal like that. And if you can
Yeah.
go in and do a reno and force value on it, flip it, clear, let's call it 150, 200 grand, and go and put it
Yeah.
into one of these accelerated deals, it's kind of a no brainer because it takes your portfolio to new heights.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of property investors have this sort of emotional attachment with their first investment
Mm.
property. Like it's what got them started. It's where all their
Yep.
revenues come from. It's how they built the most equity. But I
Yep.
think, by doing what you did and actually reviewing your portfolio, even annually or every 6 months, you can
Yep.
actually see what the worst performers are. And regardless of what emotional attachment you have, like if
Yeah.
that's the worst performer, I totally agree. If you've got an opportunity to make, tenfold the money, why
Yep.
wouldn't you sell off and use them, have a better opportunity cost than it just being held in that one property.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, mate.
So that's probably been a good strong side and a good decision from you. But has there been any mistakes that you've made along the journey?
Not really, mate. To be
No.
honest, like, yeah, not trying to, I guess, brag about it or anything, but
Yeah.
I've been quite lucky, in terms of, I'm not really lucky. I take ages to pull the trigger on an area. To be honest,
Yeah.
I study it, I meet all these different agents. By the time you buy something, I know the area like the back of my hand. So I haven't really made any investment decisions poorly. Um, Yeah, mate. I mean, to tell you the truth, it's kind of the worst decision I made out of a whole investing journey was I trusted the wrong advisor at a point.
Right.
It was another buyer's agent. To tell you the truth, mate, I say it was like kind of it was the worst experience I had in my whole journey of real estate investing,
Yeah.
but it pushed me to want to become a buyer's agent. So
Right.
I hate the guy now for it. But at the same time, like, I'm coming up the ranks of being competition for him now.
Yeah.
Some of his clients are coming to me.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome.
what it's karma, man. What goes around comes around, sort of thing.
And
And
it
I
teaches
love being
you
able to help people.
Yeah, and it teaches you what not to do as well. Like, now
Yeah,
not to do what he did as a buyer's agent.
yep,
And I think,
definitely.
the industry overall is becoming so much more predominant than it has been historically, and it's a great space to be in. I mean, the benefits of having a buyer's agent, and just for the listeners, I'm not a buyer's agent. I don't ever plan to be one. I don't know any personally now until I've met Sam. So, um, but for me, like, just having an advisor around you, and the cost may be a little bit expensive up the front, but they're going to save you that cost in the long run just by
Yeah,
negotiating down the price, or even in opportunity cost. But
yeah,
telling you not to
definitely.
buy a specific property and to buy a different one instead of it. So, and what I'm saying is the team overall. It's not just buyers agents, but having the right people around you that are going to give you the right advice can just fast track your journey significantly. Like for me now, thinking about the purchases that I've made, if I had come to Sam 5 years ago and he could have done one of these super deals for me, I might be way more ahead than I could be. So I think just having the right, and just have someone to bounce off, right? Like, just being able to
Yeah,
talk about
definitely.
it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I couldn't
Um,
agree more, man.
so, I mean, what sort of resources have helped you sort of learn to become, the property buyer that you are today?
To tell you the truth, mate, the only thing I've really ever done was when I was younger. I used to, like, there was the three big property mags. I don't know if you ever got into them, but there was, what was it? Your Investment Property, Smart Property Investment, and Australian Property Investor.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was those three mags. That's all I did. I read them back to front. I learned, I learned about all these different investors and what they'd done, and pretty much I took that. I guess that's how I kind of built my strategy. So what I was talking about before with the foundation properties, and then the developments and high cash flow deals. I call them the Trident formula. For me,
Nice.
it's like a triple
Yeah.
pronged spear, three
Yeah.
different modes of investing, and essentially I learned those three different modes by reading about all these different people and what they were doing. And personally, I don't think you can really succeed going down just one avenue,
Yeah.
because I think it limits you a little bit too much, and I think you miss out on too many things at once. Whereas I think if you're putting all three into action,
Yeah.
I think that's how you can really explode what you're doing and kind of take it to a crazy level.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and I think having those fundamental, I mean, for me, it was Steve McKnight's 0 to
Mm,
120 properties. But
mm,
I think growing up, having that sort of material, even laying around the house, is even what triggered me. And just being able to read and engage. And I think this day and age is a little bit different with podcasts and YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
just having, accessibility to that sort of content and being able
yeah.
to see how others have done it before you motivates you to get into that position.
Yeah, definitely. You know what, mate? You saying that was actually probably the first investment book I ever read. So
Yeah.
I think,
Wow.
that one actually probably had a big impact on me as well back in that. I
Yeah.
forgot about that one. You can't do it on the same level that he did back then because it was
Nah.
very different. You could just put everything in trusts and hide it from the other banks and just continually roll it. As long as you had positive cash flow from the deals, you could
Yeah.
keep doing it, which is awesome, which is crazy. But it's unfortunately you could not actually do it well. Not that I'm aware, unless you had an unbelievable borrowing capacity. But the way he did it, I don't think you can actually do it like that anymore because it's much more, I guess, above board with lending and the way
Yeah.
they do it.
Well, we've got
But
this
it's pretty awesome.
we've got this open banking policy coming through
Mm,
now, and but
yep.
beforehand you didn't, if you had a loan in a trust account, you didn't have to disclose it on your financial statements.
Yeah.
So that's
That's it.
how he was able to just keep on opening up these different trust accounts and then
Yeah.
getting a new loan in every single one without
Yeah.
disclosing all the other loans that he had.
Yeah.
Whereas these days and age, and I don't know where it's at currently, but yeah, soon enough, all banks will be able to get details with your permission. I don't know if
Yep.
it's with your permission or without, but they'll be
No, I
able to
think it's
see
without.
most.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be able to see most of or everything that you do with your
Yeah.
financials. So yeah, it's an interesting time, but I think it's better as well. You know what I mean? Like it'd be
More
great to be
responsible,
able to do
definitely.
that, but you're definitely more responsible. Yeah. So I mean, what kind of drive you sound like a pretty positive and passionate kind of guy. What sort of drives you? Like, do you have a favorite quote or what gets you up in the morning?
Oh, you stumped me a little bit on that one there. Not really, mate. I don't know. I just love to go hard. Hey,
Yeah,
I'm up early every morning. I train every morning.
nice. Gym
Yeah,
or
mate.
run?
Yeah, mate. Primarily gym. I run as well, and I do boxing and stuff as well. Like that's
Jeez,
I've been boxing for probably close to 15 years now.
nice.
But yeah, man, it's like that's my cardio side. But no, I kind of every morning I get up and just train in the gym. Um, yeah, but no, mate. In terms of quotes and stuff, I don't really run off quotes or anything. I just
Yeah,
yeah, I just always trying to go as hard as I can.
just life in general is what
Yeah,
motivates you.
man. May as well live
Nice.
it,
Yeah.
eh?
Exactly. And what advice would you give to sort of our generation to help them get started?
Oof. Probably if you're serious, like have a good hard think. Like if you're, I had a lot of mates, right? So it's a funny one, this one, hey, because different people want different things, and I'm 29 now, right? But even when I was like 25, 26, I had like I don't know, whatever it was, 7 or 8 properties, whatever. And people would say to me, oh, like I wish I had what you had and stuff. And I'm like, well, you can start now and still go pretty hard. But people get very caught up in wanting to travel, um,
Yeah.
buy the nice cars, be a show pony, like
Yeah.
really put themselves there. And mate, to say the truth, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with living your 20s, your teens and your 20s, like and have a really good time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of what do you actually want? Because a lot of people look at me now, and I don't know. I don't have to work. I don't
Mm.
have to run this business. I have enough to travel. And I don't say that to boost myself up. It's just quite honestly what I've the hard yards and what I've put in has allowed me to do that. So it kind of just depends on what you want to do. If you want something like this, it, it's there's no easy ticket to it. You have to save. You have to make sacrifices. You have to be willing to to not be seen as a maybe something you're trying to make yourself out to be. It's
Yeah.
it's something you kind of got to put into perspective for the longer term gains. Because I tell you what, it's the goal I always had. I'll tell you this, Jordan. The goal I always had was 20 properties before I turned, while I was still in my 20s,
Nice.
and I hit that. A few weeks ago. I finally got my 20th, and it's it kind of made me actually stop and kind of look back, and I was like, holy shit, like I
You
actually
did
did
it.
pretty well here,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And when you kind of get to that point where you've done some things you really set out to do, or mate, even like you've got 2 properties, like that's still awesome,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool. And I'll tell you right now, I always kind of was, this is funny actually. I always thought, I need the flash car, I need to, go on the big trips to put out this, this persona of who I am. I tell you right now, mate, when someone hears you have a couple of properties or you got 5, 10 properties, whatever, people are pretty impressed by that sort of stuff as well, like it's
Yeah.
not the average Joe that's got that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah, exactly. And it's not
it's all
like
perspective,
it's not like it was given to you, or you've been sitting on a really nice salary for the last 20 years and now all of a sudden you've got properties. You started on 50K and you've built your way up. And I think that's a real testament to who you are and what you can achieve. And you don't need to have a good foundation to get going. You can do this sort of stuff. It's all about knowledge and talking to the right people and getting into the right places. And I think just on the people that sort of live that flashy lifestyle, sometimes they don't even know any better, because our generation's just grown up with this sort of instant gratification of if I post a photo on Instagram and it doesn't get enough likes within an hour, I'm going to delete it because it just didn't perform well enough, and that's what we've grown up with, unfortunately. But I think having people like you talk and motivate and even mentor people about how to set themselves up financially, maybe their Instagram stories will start to change.
Maybe. Maybe, man. Like it'd be cool if could change for a few people's perspectives like that as well. That'd be cool.
That's my goal, mate. If I can help someone else, like if someone else doesn't have to be a burden to the government in the next 60 years, then I'll be a happy man.
Yeah, for sure.
So if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do so?
So, mate, you could either look me up on so both Instagram and Facebook. I've got the Australian Property Scout page there. Same as on those, mate. You can find me at Sam Gordon. Website, mate, www.australianpropertyscout.com.au. Mate, anyone that wants to get out, reach out, have a chat about property or how they could get started, feel free to. There's a little scheduling link to schedule a call in there. Mate, book in a call. I've always got time for people. I'm happy to have a chat and see where I can help people add value to people who are looking to invest, mate. For a lot of time for people who are willing to to get out there and have a crack, so to speak.
Yeah, beautiful. Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on again today, Sam.
No worries, Jordan, mate. Thanks for having me on.
If Sam's story doesn't inspire you to go out and achieve your goals, then I don't know what will. As he said, the hardest part is just getting started on the first one. Then by buying well, you can build that foundation portfolio and recycle the growth back into bigger deals with higher yields and better returns. I'm always looking for more guests to come onto the show. If you're under 30 and have one or more investment properties, whether it's good, bad or ugly, I would love to talk to you about it. The main focus is to help other soon-to-be young investors with tips and tricks along the journey. Learn from the mistakes we have made and ignite the fire to set themselves up financially for the rest of their lives. If you're interested in sharing your story, you can go to jordandeong.com/podcasts, where there's a podcast inquiry button at the top that will guide you through the next steps. If you're keen for more content like this, make sure you subscribe, and please leave us a review with any feedback for future podcasts. And until next time, happy house hunting.